Hi there, Prairie Plant Girl here. Today we are going to continue on with our What Am I Sowing series, and we're going to be looking at the pumpkins and squash that I am sowing for the 2021 gardening season. Last August of 2020, I went on a shopping spree and I picked up a good full handful of seed packets of squash and pumpkins, and then probably 2 fistful of sunflowers as well. We'll leave the sunflowers for another day, but I don't know. I just got really excited about squash and pumpkins. They're something that I enjoy having in my garden. I enjoy using them. I've grown pumpkins for years, and I started growing them as something for my kids for carving for Halloween, and I just thought it was fun when they were little. We would plant the pumpkins, and they could watch them grow and then carve them. And then I started growing other kinds to add on as little extra display items, and I've grown pie pumpkins and made my own pies, and I've always enjoyed summer squash. But I've started in the last few years realizing the wonder that is winter squash, something that hasn't been a staple in my diet ever. And I've started to pick them up in the stores, try different ones, and really discovered that it's something that I really enjoy, and they're versatile, and they're supposed to store really well. So I've been wanting to grow some for myself. And I've tried the last couple of years, and I just haven't quite gotten it right. And I think part of it is location, maybe the varieties I was growing, because I had tried the last couple of years just to grow from seed that I'd saved out of ones that I bought at the store. So they might just not have been good seeds to be using for that type of thing. So anyways, I went a little crazy and bought several varieties, mostly pumpkins, but a few varieties of squash as well. And we're going to go on a little bit of a pumpkin squash adventure this summer, I guess, and see how that turns out for me. So let's dive in, and first we're going to look at the squash varieties that I picked up, and I'll tell you a little bit about them, and then we'll look at the pumpkins real quick. And these are actually, I think, all from Vessi Seeds. It's not an ad or anything, not, but just happened to be where I was shopping that day when I decided that I needed them all, but I couldn't have them all. So this is what I narrowed it down to. So East Elite is a buttercup squash. I've never tried even tasting a buttercup squash before, let alone growing one, but I guess this will be the year to do that. It's a smaller one. It was advertised as being similar to Sweet Mama, which is supposed to be a very popular one, but a little bit smaller in size. And since I'm still trying to convince the rest of my family that squash are the best thing ever, I thought smaller size squash, because it's usually just me eating them, was probably a good idea. So sounded good. So it's just a dark green buttercup squash. It has that little buttercup squash little kind of belly button thing at the bottom. Otherwise it's kind of a squat, some people say square shaped kind of squash, and it's supposed to have yellow flesh. It's supposed to be nice and sweet, and 85 to 90 day maturity. So hopefully it works out well for me. 2 to 3 pounds. This also says it grows an abundant crop. I'll probably only be planting like 1 plant of most of these varieties because I really don't need a whole lot. The next one is Celebration. This is an acorn squash, but it's a little bit fancy. It has like green and gold and yellow tones. I think it has a little bit of orange in there. It's just a really pretty squash. So they say it works really well for decoration as well as for eating. I enjoy acorn squash. They're a good squash. I like to, I'll cut them in rings and bake them with just a little bit of butter or brown sugar, or I'll go the other way with like some savory, like maybe some Parmesan or something on them. So that's how I usually enjoy making them. They're a little bit tricky to cut open that way, but they're pretty good to eat. So I thought this was just a nice one because it has that different coloring too. So it'll be nice for displaying if I get a few of them, but also good for storing and eating. So Celebration. This was kind of my crazy splurge of the bunch of them here. It's called Wild Bunch. So it's just a big combination of several different types of squash. And I'll read to you. It says, "These are all the weirdest and wildest looking squash that we have in our trials." So again, I'll probably only grow a couple of these. I'm not actually sure where I'm going to be putting these in my, because these won't go in my regular garden, I don't think. They're more probably going to be mostly decorative. Some of them might be good for storing. I'll have to find out what I wind up with. I kind of think my front yard is mostly native plantings, and a lot of it is actually rock with just planting pockets popped into it. So I might actually try and pop these in and have them grow out over the rocks this year and just see how that goes. It actually is pretty good soil up there. So that might be where these wind up. But again, probably just a couple of these will get planted. Then I picked up a combination pack of summer squash. This seems to be the year that I picked up the mixed combos of different vegetable seeds. So I don't know, I must have been in a gambling mood when I was picking my seeds out. But this is just a summer squash. They call it a surprise mix. And I believe it has 4 kinds in it. It says consists of dark green, light green, yellow, and striped zucchini. Now, I actually have packs of zucchini seed, a dark green, I believe, and a yellow. So I didn't really need this, but I don't know, like I said, I got caught up in the moment that day. These are earlier maturing by a little bit than the ones that I already have. So that'll be nice to have. They'll mature a bit earlier. I'll probably plant 2 or 3 of these. And so hopefully I wind up with 2 or 3 different varieties out of that. So that's my squash varieties. Now my pumpkins. I love growing pumpkins. I don't know. I really enjoy watching them grow and mature. And you never totally know what you have until the frost hits them. And I guess the winter squash would be like that too. But you know, there's always some hiding in there that you didn't even realize, even with their bright orange skin and the the green leaves. It always seems like there's still some hiding. So the pumpkins that I picked up aren't anything too crazy or wild. They're all basic medium size fruit for the first 3 varieties, and the other ones are kind of little baby miniatures. So I got Cougar. Cougar is supposed to be a 10 to 12 pound pumpkin, and I think it has that real classic kind of pumpkin look to it. It's supposed to be powdery mildew resistant, which is always a good thing in the garden. And it's, I think, an early one, yes, 75 to 80 days. So that's good in my climate. Then I had Renegade. Now this one is a little bit larger. What does it say? They are 14 to 18 pound fruit, and it's supposed to be blocky round. So we'll find out what that means, blocky round. It's supposed to have kind of a medium veining in it. You know, sometimes the ribs and the veins are real deep in the pumpkin, and sometimes they're almost non-existent, and this is medium, so that'll be good. I think the Cougar was a deeper vein. It just says ribbed, so I'm not sure if that means they're more prominent. They're supposed to be very uniform. You're supposed to get 2 to 3 pumpkins out of a plant, so 1 plant should be nice for me with the Renegade. And I think this one's mildew resistant, or powdery mildew resistant. Yeah, this one's a 95-day pumpkin, so it's a little bit longer to mature. But I find pumpkins, once they're starting to turn, if you can protect them from the first, light frost or 2 that you get out in the yard, which usually just put a sheet over, and usually the mature plants can take it pretty well. Then once they start to color, even if the plant dies and you have to take it in, if you put it somewhere cool but bright, they'll usually turn color for you. They don't always store super well. They might be some of the first ones you need to use, which if you're using them for carving, that's not a big deal. But if you're using them to eat, then that's some of the first ones you should be using. But it's usually not a big deal. They'll usually color up for me even after they're off the vine. And this is New Rocket, and it's, again, supposed to be kind of a medium to large fruit. Does it tell me the size? 14 to 22 pounds. And it's just a nice big kind of generic pumpkin size. But all of these have just a little bit different shape, and that's what I like. I mean, It might seem kind of silly, but if I'm going to be using them for carving or putting out on display, which I'll try and hopefully have a few of those to do with this, and then a few to save to eat. I do like if they don't all look exactly the same. So that's why I picked 3 that are they're kind of standard pumpkin, but they all should have their own look. These are supposed to have really good strong handles and really strong coloring. So, and then I have the babies. So the last few years have been growing baby pumpkin mixes. And this is some from last year. Last year's weren't that prolific in their production. But like I said, I think last year I grew them in my big pots in the middle of the yard. I thought it would be a good spot for my pumpkins and squash, and it wasn't. I had trouble with keeping them watered well and evenly. And I don't know, I think they were too exposed to wind there, and they just did not do well. But so I had a few of these, and I haven't done anything. I honestly have never tried eating these little baby pumpkins. I'm gonna have to do that one day. I'll cut these open. These 2 are so nice though. I also had an orange one, and it was really tiny, and it just wasn't mature this year, and it actually slowly shriveled away to nothing. But these are still really firm and nice, so I might try eating one just to see, or both, just to see. I have no idea what the flavor is, if they're just for decoration, but they're still kind of nice to have, even though it's spring. Little pumpkins in my growing room here. But so the first one I have is the Baby Jack mix, and I actually have a few seeds of these. So I'm not sure why I bought more. Again, I just kind of went on a crazy little growing moment or buying moment that day. So I have lots of these seeds. The Baby Jack mix is, they call it a spooktacular blend of mini pumpkins. So there's white pumpkins like these. These ones actually turned out, I had kind of a yellow one and a white one. I think I actually used some of my saved seed for these, so I don't know if that's why, because the first time I grew them, they were white. Then there's also some orange pumpkins, and then there's some that are striped white and orange. Those were really pretty. I didn't get any of those last year. So that's what's in this mix. Again, it doesn't say anything about flavor or anything on these, so I don't really know. It's more about decoration, I think. But I'm kind of curious, so I may, because I have these 2 sitting here, cut into them and give them a try one of these days. And then I got the Baby Pam. So the Baby Pam is like a pie pumpkin. So it's a smaller pumpkin. It's a nice size for cooking up to get the meat for making pumpkins. I haven't grown a good pie pumpkin in a couple of years, and so I'm looking forward to having this and making my own pumpkin puree for pies and desserts and pancakes, pumpkin pancakes and muffins, and you know, all those great pumpkin things that you get in the fall. So I'm hoping to get a few of these so that I can make up some pumpkin puree with them. But that's my pumpkin and squash that I will be growing for the 2021 season. It's a lot of pumpkin and squash for my garden space. Now I am lucky, I do have a really good sized garden space compared to a lot of urban gardeners. But pumpkins and squash tend to vine a lot. I did get a couple that are supposed to be more compact or bush type plants, but most of these are vining. I will be trying to utilize vertical space, like these little guys do really well on trellises at the back of my garden. So I might just pop the plants in at the back of some of my beds and let them grow up a trellis along the fence. That works really well for these. And then another thing you can do with pumpkins is just kind of keep them to one or two vines coming off the plant, or turn the vines back into the plant as they grow, so they're not going out through your whole yard. Plant them on the edge of a planting bed where you have a space, like if you have a gravel area, or even your lawn, if you're okay with not mowing it, somewhere where they can vine out onto that and not in through all of your plants and trample them down. Or once you have the fruit that you are happy with having on your plants and you're not really looking for it to set anymore, or maybe it's getting towards the end of the season, instead of letting them to continue growing on and vining out further, you can just start cutting the ends of the vines off. That can be easier said than done. You have to be careful that you're not accidentally cutting off a vine that has fruit on it at some point, because they can get pretty wild and crazy looking, and sometimes it's hard to tell where the vine begins and ends. But those are all suggestions to try and help you keep your vines in check. Again, good consistent watering is always nice with squash and pumpkins. These are plants that you really don't want to be putting out early. They don't like windy spots. They like protection from the wind, so if you can give them that, that's super. And they like warm soil, like we're talking like around 20 degrees or so, even warmer, before you're putting the plants in the soil. So you'll either need to put something out to warm the soil and then have like a floating row cover or something over if you're putting like starts or seeds out a little bit early, or you need to be waiting. In my climate, it could be like early June to mid-June before you really want to be putting them out, unless you're giving them good protection. I might experiment with a few of these with using the Cozy Coats or Wall of Water. I think you may have seen them on some of my tomato videos. They work really well for warming the soil and keeping the plants protected from wind and keeping them warm. And I've actually picked up a few more of them this year, so I have a decent amount of them now. So I might play around with putting a few of them out with that. We'll see. Pumpkin and squash aren't super heavy feeders. A little bit of a higher phosphorus is said to be able to help them to set their flowers and their fruit. So that's something to consider if you're having trouble with that. And then, you know, encouraging pollinators, or you might need to go around and find the male and the female flowers and just, you know, take nature into your own hands and do a little pollinating yourself if you don't have a lot of pollinators in your area, or if they don't seem to be going to your plants. So yeah, I think that pretty much covers my squash and pumpkin palooza here for 2021. Join me when I get out into the garden and check out how they're growing for me, and we'll hopefully have a really good harvest to show off of a variety of different plants. So keep on watching for that, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.